Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel. It is nice to see you either way. Today I am sitting down to film a more traditional podcast episode. So let's get into it. I've got a lot to share this month. Okay, hello. I hope that you are having a great day wherever you are, staying cozy, staying warm, staying dry. I guess it could be very sunny, nice where you are, but I'm currently stuck inside because of a blizzard, so that's why I'm saying I hope you're dry. But as I said in the intro, we are filming just a more traditional podcast today, so I've got 7 finished objects today, 2 whips, which is so unlike me, very small amount of acquisitions, and then some things that I will share as we get going. So let's just get into it. Before we start, I'm wearing my Mauricia cardigan. This is a pattern by Vert and Rose, and I knit mine with 2 strands of the Yarnalia Joy in the color Rose Gold and 1 strand of Fibers Fates Cumulus in the colorway Fig. If you want any other details, it is in my Ravelry projects, which you can find the link to my Ravelry in the description below. So let's get into the finished objects because, as I mentioned, there are 7. So want to, be running through this. So the first thing I'm going to share is my iris hat. This is my first finished object of 2020. No, wait. I finished this in 2023. So this was my last finished object of 2023. I think I finished it like December 28th or something. Don't really want to put it on right now because my hair, I just took a shower and it is very prone to being frizzy after that, but I'll just show you on my hands. It's a nice hat. I actually removed 2 increase rounds from this hat, so it's 12 stitches smaller than it's supposed to be, and it's still pretty big on me. Still pretty big. I do have a small head. I can wear baby hats if I want to. But yeah, it's a little bit big. I think that I really like the top of this hat, but I'm not sure that I would make it again. I did make 2, and both are kind of just a little bit big, and I think it has to do more with the shaping. The yarn, I should have mentioned that first, is the Yarn Addict Co. non-superwash base. I think it was called Free Range Fingering in the color Petal Perch, held with drops brushed alpaca silk in the color Powder Pink to make a nice DK weight. And so this hat, it's the Iris hat by Sari Nordland. It is a top-down knit hat with these really nice increases at the top to make this kind of starburst look. And it looks really cool on when you're looking at the top, but it definitely is a little bit larger than I would ideally like. But it keeps me warm, and I like the colors. It's simple enough. So can't be that upset, and it took me not very long at all to knit. So I'm definitely getting my wear out of this, even though it maybe is a little bit large, but it's kind of nice to have it be a slightly larger hat since it doesn't compress my hair quite as much. So overall, I'm happy with this knit, but I don't think I'll revisit this pattern again because it definitely doesn't give the tightest fitting hat. But yeah, it is stunning. So that's our first finished object. And anything else to say about it? No, it was great. I mostly knit it on the plane when I was going to visit my aunt and uncle after Christmas. So it was really great plane knitting. I was actually knitting in the Denver airport, and this old man sat next to me and just started like pointing at me and laughing. He was with his wife, but his wife didn't notice, and kind of just not open mouth laughing, but just like giggling. And I asked him like, "Hi, can I help you?" And he just was like, "Yeah," and then mime knitting. I was like, "Yeah." So that was kind of weird. Slightly weird experience with this hat in the knitting progress, but otherwise very enjoyable knit. I think that it's nice to just do the hardest part at the beginning, and then you just get, or it's not hard, but like the most detailed part right at the beginning, and then you just get pretty long section of mindless ribbing. So I appreciated that while traveling, and I've worn the finished object quite a bit, so I am happy with it overall. All right, the next thing I knit, I do not have because it was a sample knit for Salty Blonde Fibers or Ryan. This was a really fun sample knit. It was for her Jane Austen book club collection. So she did a Jane Austen inspired advent calendar and then has brought back a few of the colorways from the advent calendar for a individual released collection. It's not here yet. I think it's coming very soon. And it was wonderful. I've talked to Ryan a few times and I really, really love her. And the pressed flower socks in this yarn was just stunning. I knit the pressed flower socks on her yak sock base. And the colors that I used were 13s and I Am a Captain. And they just looked beautiful together. It was so fun. And yeah, just a really enjoyable process. So I'll put a picture up. But yeah, overall, super happy with that experience and the finished object. While I can't rate its wearability or, kind of the final product, I will say that they were beautiful and I definitely want to make the socks for myself in the future. So, all right. The next thing is this little, oh my gosh, let me get a couple down. I made a tiny replicas of almost every single but one of the socks I made this year. So this is one of the socks I made. You may remember this if you've watched my podcast before. This was a gift knit for my grandma, and it is the Blooming Lavender Socks by Stone Knits. So I made a tiny little colorwork chart to make the same little lavender designs and used the same leftover yarn and made tiny little socks. There, and then I have them, I'll have a picture in so you can see it better, but I had these tiny little clothespins, so I hung them on the tiny clothespins and then just took some twine and hung it above my where I film. So let's see actually if I can there we go. You can see a little bit more and I will have a picture in, but yeah, a bunch of tiny little socks of replicas that I made this year. There's 11 in total. Yeah, 11 socks in total. I did make 12 socks this year, so it's just those that I still had the yarn of. But yeah, this was so fun. It was kind of a nice little break from a bunch of larger projects. So I really enjoyed it, and I'll have pictures in, but look how cute. Some of them, here, let me grab my two favorites. This was my Christmas socks. So look how cute. Oh my gosh. And then this is a sock that I made for my mom. And so this is the mini version of the Ode to Barbara socks by Summerly Designs. And so cute. If you're interested, I replicated the lace chart on here. I did it. So cute. If you are interested in any of the yarns or sock patterns that are in the sock garland, I recommend you just check my Ravelry. The pattern I used to make all the mini versions was the Tiny Tree Sock by Summerly Designs. It's a free pattern and it's meant to make little ornaments, but I used it for replicating the socks I have to make a little garland. But yeah, it was so fun. And then, if you want pattern information or yarn information, that'll all be in my Ravelry. Just, scroll through my projects and you'll be able to find all the socks you see here. I'm pretty good about having pictures. So you should be able to identify that's the same yarn from the mini sock. That must be the same pattern. So yeah, but so cute. But yeah, that was the Tiny Tree socks. It was very fun. I did get pretty sick of making tiny socks at the end, and there was definitely a bit of too much gene coming out as far as trying to replicate the stitch patterns for the lace socks or trying to make tiny versions of the colorwork socks I did this year. I definitely could have toned that down a little, but I'm really happy with the final impact, and I think that I want to do it again this year. So we'll see if that actually comes true, because I also want to make at least 12 pairs of socks this year, if not more. So that would be a lot of tiny little socks to make, but We'll see as the year gets closer to an end or as it goes on if I decide I do want to do that. But for now, I am very happy to have the sock garland, which when I'm on a Teams meeting at work, you can see it in the background. And then it just makes me happy to see it every day in my office. So yeah. Okay, the next finished object I have is, let me put them on, these mittens. They are knit in the same yarn as the Iris hat. So it's the Yarn Addict Co. free range fingering Petal Perch, and then drops brushed alpaca silk in the color powder pink. And the pattern is the World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits, which is a free pattern, which is awesome. It has multiple different gauges, as well as multiple size options from children to adult large. I think there might have been a baby option. So yeah, very, very well-written pattern, and the fact that it's free is amazing. These are not the best shaped mittens. I think that I've seen mittens that are a little bit more ergonomic as far as shaping more on this side than this side, but they fit my fingers or my hands, and they're cute, they're comfy, and I didn't have to buy a pattern, which is awesome, and they keep my hands nice and warm. So I made the adults small size. Yes, adult small size. I did size down to a US 3 needle. I think the pattern called for a US 5, and I don't know, I felt like having a tighter gauge. So I did go down for that, and then I used a 1.5 millimeter needle, or a US 1.5 for the cuffs. The reason was lazy. It wasn't laziness. I decided that I wanted to use my small circumference 9-inch circulars from Chiagu, and I only have those going up to a US 3. So I decided to go down from the US 5 to the US 3 so that I could use those, and I'm happy I did. They still are nice and warm and cozy, and I used a US 3 for this hat, so I kind of felt like maybe, I don't know, I don't think it really mattered that the same needle size was used, but the stitches are similar sizes now. The only other modification I made is I also Kitchenered the top of the mittens instead of pulling them together, just because I thought that would make a little hole. You're supposed to just thread your yarn through the last 6 stitches at the end and pull it tight. But I'd seen Laura Penrose talk about how that left holes for her, and she just Kitchenered them, and I figured I would rather make sure it's fully sealed than have the little point at the top. I was also hoping it would make it a little bit more rounded, and I think that it did. So yeah, these are great. They fit their purpose. They were really quick knit. I did both of them in a weekend, and they fit my hands. They're cozy. I did shorten the cuff. I don't know why. I just felt like it. And yeah, I'm happy with them. And they make a cute little winter accessories set. So yeah, that was a fun thing. I might still add more winter accessories while we still have winter. I'll see as things go on, but for now, that scratched my accessories itch. My next finished object was this pair of socks. So these are the Hermione's Everyday Socks by Erica Luter. It is a free pattern, which is amazing. It has 10,000 projects, so it's a pretty well-written sock pattern, and the stitch pattern's really cool on it. So I highly recommend knitting the pattern. And then I used the Ultimate Sock, just sock yarn by Hedgehog Fibers in the color Dune. I will say I'm not the happiest with this yarn. It's really soft, but there's 2 things. First of all, the color pooling is pretty bad. I don't know. I mean, this is the most I've paid for a sock yarn. It was $35 for 100 grams, when normally I'll pay, I guess maybe I paid $32 for a luxury sock yarn, which has cashmere in it, but for just I think it was a 75-25 superwash merino and nylon blend sock yarn, it's not the best. It is really soft, but yeah, I don't know. I would just expect the colors to not pool like that, and I know that it's not you can't avoid that completely when dyeing yarn, but I would think that if you're marketing something as a sock yarn, and you are well known in the industry and you have, you know, a lot of experience dyeing and you're selling yarn for a very expensive price, that maybe it wouldn't pool quite this bad, especially when it's sock yarn made for socks and I made a 64 stitch count sock, which is kind of the standard. So yeah, you can just see, I mean, it's worse on this sock, but you can just see there's a lot of splotches. I mean, I don't know. It could have been just an odd batch or something, or, you know, it's not as big of an issue as I think it is, but I've never really experienced that before from other indie dyers where it is so heavily pooled. But I mean, it's still soft and I still do like the colors. So it's fine. Like, it's luckily on the back of the biggest patch here is on the back of the foot or the leg. So it doesn't fully matter, but it's just something worth noting here. You can also maybe tell that it's pretty big. I used a US 0 needle and a 64 stitch count, which I do for pretty much all my socks, and they might be a little bit loose, but these are pretty loose. They're pretty wide, and I think that the yarn just blocked out more than I thought it would, which is just something to note. I don't know what they do differently to make the yarn act a lot differently than other 85 or 75-25 superwash sock yarns I've worked with, but I don't know, it just blocked a little bit more. And then finally, I've already noticed, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, a little bit, a fair amount of felting for these, maybe 3 times. So I don't think that I'll buy the sock yarn again, but I will say it's very soft and these are kind of nice slippers and the pattern was great and the colors of these are really cool. But just maybe let me know if you've had that experience with the Hedgehog Fibers sock yarn, because I would be really interested to know if this is a one-off thing. I've heard others talk about how well dyed Hedgehog Fibers yarn is so that it doesn't pool, so I was just kind of intrigued by my experience here. So yeah, let me know if you've had a similar experience or different, or have any suggestions for why this specific yarn could have acted like that as far as felting quickly, the pooling, and then growing so much. Let me know. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to be overly negative. They're still nice socks, and it was a really nice experience to work with the yarn. But just a few things could have been slightly better, but that's okay. That is kind of part of life. But okay, my next finished object I do not have. I was busy this month. I also knit up swatches for Apothecary Fibers. Her name is Courtney. She's another wonderful yarn dyer, and she has a new collection coming out soon. I forget the exact date, but I think it's maybe next week. It is called A Gathering of Faeries, and it is a winter to spring collection of yarns meant to be inspired by kind of coming into a clearing of a forest and finding all these fairies, and it's during that time between winter and spring. So I can say I can't show the swatches because not all of the colors have been shown yet, but there's a wonderful set of colors coming, and she's just a really wonderful dyer. I really like all of her inspiration. And yeah, it was really fun to work with Courtney and just kind of sit and knit these squares. I thought that I was not going to enjoy swatching because it was just making 10 squares over and over, but it was actually really enjoyable to play with colors that I normally wouldn't, and her yarn is really nice. I was using her fingering base, which is I think it's also a 75-25. And yeah, the colors are just well mixed. It's very well dyed. She's very thoughtful about the colors she chooses as well as the names for the colors. And yeah, it's overall a really great collection, and I'm excited to have everyone see all the colors. And as compensation, I do get a gift card, so I have to decide which kind of colors I want for myself as well. So yeah, maybe I'll put a picture up of in black and white of, I took a picture holding all the swatches and it kind of looked like this little sandwich. And it just made me so happy. You can see in the colored version, you can see a little glimpse of each color, and it just is like so comforting, and it was really cozy to hold all of the swatches together. So it made me really happy, and it was great working with her as well. And okay, my final finished object is this Friday Slipover V-neck edition. So this is a petite knit pattern, Friday Slipover V-neck, and I knit it with one strand of the Knit Picks Gloss, which is a silk and merino wool blend yarn. It's fingering weight. One strand of the Explore Knits and Fibers Surrey in the colorway Joshua Tree National Park. Oh, and the Knit Picks Gloss was Undyed. And then I also, around the edging, used drops brushed alpaca silk in the color Powder Pink. So the overall effect is that the edgings are all this solid pink, and then the body is this nice kind of variegated pastel collection of colors. And I'm really happy with this. It is so soft, so lightweight, so drapey with the silk and then the alpaca. So I'm very happy with the overall fabric. I also, through this project, have decided I think that Broken Rib is my favorite stitch pattern. It just, like, I don't know, it looks really good, in my opinion. I really like it. I also really like the shaping in this. Looks just wonderful in the Broken Rib. So yeah, I really like that, and I really like the colors, the feel of the fabric, and oh, I should mention I knit this as a knit along with Hannah from Pages and Pearls here on YouTube and Instagram. She is wonderful. I did finish before her, but I realized that we have different amounts of knitting time, and I definitely am a little bit more of a monogamous knitter. So it makes sense that I would finish before. My gauge was also off, so my row gauge was a little bit larger than hers, so I had to do less rows to make the same amount of fabric. So overall, makes sense that I'm already done. But yeah, it was funny. I was kind of trying to slow myself down so that we could finish closer together. I was also playing Yarn Chicken on this project, and I always knit quicker when I'm playing Yarn Chicken. So yeah, overall, I ended up finishing before her, but this still took me about a month to knit, which is a little bit slower than I would normally go. But, you know, I was trying to stay kind of more on pace with my knit along buddy, and I knit these socks and these gloves in the middle of knitting this, as well as the swatches. So yeah, I overall really enjoyed this pattern. I did do a few modifications. I cropped it just kind of because I was running out of yarn, honestly. And then I also did a split hem. So I am really happy with the way the split hem looks, and my lights keep flickering. As I mentioned, we're in a blizzard, so I'm hoping our power doesn't go out. So sorry if you noticed that, and if you see me come back later in different clothes, it's because our power went out. But yeah, so I did the split hem and yeah, cropped it. That was kind of my main modifications. And then otherwise, I stuck to pattern. I made the size medium, and yeah, I will say with this pattern, I want to knit it again, but I want to shape it a little bit more. You basically just make a rectangle for the back. So until about here, when you start shaping, it is just a rectangle. Like this neckline in the back is just a solid straight line. And I think that this pattern could be a little bit better if it was shaped more like a trapezoid in the back, just so that the sleeves went a little bit over the shoulders. Or so I could either do that by just increasing as I go at first, to not just start with all of my stitches, but just do like a cable cast on or something like that to add more stitches, or to do some short rows. I'm not sure which I do yet because I just finished this. I don't have concrete plans to knit it again yet. But yeah, something to consider there is the fact that it is just a solid line in the back. And then, as I mentioned, my row gauge was a little bit off, which meant that I do have a pretty deep V. It looks great over button up, but I am slightly struggling to style it more casually, because I have to wear something under it and I have to figure out what looks best under it. Maybe I'll try a V-neck t-shirt. I did feature this last week. If you watched my video last week, I styled three of my knits and tried to make casual business style and then going out or date night outfits for all three of them. And this was one of them. So I did come up with one casual outfit, and someone also suggested that maybe I use a V-neck t-shirt under it. That would be good. I don't have one of those right now, so I'll have to be on the lookout. But yeah, something that if I do this again, I want to make sure that I am on gauge and then do some shaping in the back. But overall, I am really happy with the finished object. It's comfortable, it's soft, and yeah, just a little bit big, but that's okay. That means it's really great for layering over other things. So yeah, and just so soft. Like I wish you could feel this through the screen, but yeah. Okay. Those are all my finished objects. So let's move on to whips. My first whip, I will go in order of seniority, is really exciting. Oh gosh, I dropped a bunch of stitches in it. Okay. I have the stitches back on the needles and I added some point protectors just to be safe. So this is the sweater that I'm working on, or my first whip. It is the Oakley sweater by Stitching Simply. You may also know Rachel is the designer's name as It's So Rachel on Instagram, but she is designing under the Stitching Simply name. So I'm going to refer to Stitching Simply as the creator. I am test knitting this for Rachel, and it has been a really fun experience to test knit it. It's just beautiful. So it's a top-down raglan construction with just these really nice 8-stitch cables down the raglan seams. So there's 2 in the front and 2 in the back. And then the pattern originally calls for a 1x1 rib funnel neck. So it would come to about here. And I'm slightly sensitive to this yarn, especially on my neck, I'm very sensitive. So I decided I would rather do a folded neckline. And I don't know, Rachel has been really wonderful with allowing a lot of modifications during this test knit. And I decided that I thought that a 2x1 rib looked more similar to the cables, because the cables have this kind of larger chunk of knit stitches and then have a little bit of purl texture showing through. And so I decided to do a 2x1 neckline and fold it over. I think my neckline is about 1.5 inches. And yeah, this is the final product. I mean, obviously I'm not done, but the neckline, and I really love it. I'm knitting it with 1 strand of the Purl Soho Goodwool in the color Wintergrass. It is a 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and it is my first time working with a Highland wool, and I've enjoyed it. I will say I'm slightly sensitive to it. You might be able to see I have like a slight spot from where when I'm knitting the garment rubs, and so it's just from over time touching. I'm definitely going to be able to wear this garment, and I really love the way it looks, and it definitely does get a lot softer with blocking, but pre-blocking it is slightly scratchy, and especially when I have the friction of knitting and then my wrist is moving against the garment, I've gotten a little spot from that. But overall, really, really happy with this product. I think that the coloring is just perfect. It's a really nice neutral, but it's still got some visual interest as well, because the Undyed Highland wool has a few different colors kind of in it. So it's nice to mention and just wonderful. It also fits really well already. I'm realizing I love a cabled sweater. I think that a cabled sweater is definitely not a cable, sorry, a raglan sweater is definitely my preferred fit. I also do love cables. So the two together just make me really happy to wear this garment. I think that it's going to be a really nice casual piece that I can just imagine wearing in a work meeting and just looking wonderful. So yeah, excited to get this one done. I have about 6 inches of body left before I go into ribbing. Or no, 6 inches. I have about 4 inches of body left before I go into ribbing. And yeah, it's been wonderful to work on. And it's taken me a little bit longer just because I am working on a few things concurrently. But really enjoying this, and I'm glad to be through the raglan and just doing body for a little bit now. I also think I'm going to do 2x1 ribbing on the body, the end of the body, and then on the sleeve cuffs. So hopefully, definitely by next time, this will be a finished object. It's due the 24th. So yeah, very happy with this, and it's so pretty. If you haven't seen Stitching Simply before, I also highly recommend you just go look at her account. She has some really cool, very complex cabled and lace. I think she's working on a lace design now, but yeah, a lot of really cool, kind of more complex knits as well. So highly recommend you check her out. And then my final whip, I can't show you because I'm doing another sample knit. So I'm sample knitting and making little tiny sweaters as swatches for Poppy and Spruce Fibers. I've sample knit for her before, Abby, and she has a new collection coming out on February 14th. It is called I Lichen You a Lot. Lichen is another word for moss, so it is 17 colorways, 10 variegated, 7 tonals, all inspired by different moss. It has been really, really fun to do the sample knit. I am just doing the variegated colorway, so I have 10 little sweaters to make. I've done 7 so far, so 3 to go. And yeah, it's been really enjoyable, again, to work up colors that I normally wouldn't choose and kind of see, how I think other colors really look once they're knit up, because it is so hard to tell when it's yarn versus the finished object what it's ultimately going to look like. So I've really enjoyed this process, and I'm happy to send them back soon. And then I have to choose. I also, as compensation for sample knitting, do get a gift card. So I have to choose which color is my favorite and what I would like to make with it in the future. So yeah, that has been really fun. I'll insert a black and white picture of some of them together because it is really fun to see the little sweaters. But yeah, I don't need to say too much about it. I'm just using the tiny gilded jumper pattern by Fable Knitwear. It is a free mini sweater pattern. I know there's also the mini crop puff by the Wandering Flock, but I've used the Fable Knitwear one before. It's also in a DK weight, whereas I think that the Wandering Flock one is in a fingering weight. So it just made sense for the sample knit, where I'm making 10 of them, to choose the larger gauge one and the one I'm more familiar with, so that I can do them a little bit quicker because I've already worked them up before. I'm not doing the embroidery on the front for these, just the sweater. But yeah, they're working up great, and it's been really fun. Okay, those are all my whips. And then acquisitions, I actually forgot to grab those, so hang on one second, let me get them. Okay, I just have 2 acquisitions today. If you watched my knitting intentions video, one of my goals was to buy less yarn, and so I am on a 6-month yarn ban. So from January through beginning of July. But I bought one thing before that started while I was visiting my aunt and uncle in California, and then I was slightly bad. So let's get into it. The first thing I bought, this is the Wandering Flock Baby Pack a Base. It is a sport weight although it could be worked up as fingering as well because it's 400 yards per 100 grams. So it's, I guess, slightly heavier than your traditional fingering weight yarn. So it's a little bit thicker too, sport weight, but I am planning on using this for socks, and the baby pack base is 50% merino, 30% alpaca, and 20% nylon. The color for this is Mermaid Parade, and it's just a nice seafoam green. I think you'd call that a seafoam green base with a bunch of neon speckles. So I'm really excited to work this up soon. I have plans in a few months to make some socks with it. But yeah, I've enjoyed looking at it, and it was really fun. I went to the Black Squirrel yarn store in Berkeley, California, and this was my souvenir skein, and it was a really fun experience. I went with my mom and aunt. My aunt is getting into crochet and actually watched my videos. Hi, Aunt Jennifer. So the three of us spent quite a while there. My mom knits, so that was my souvenir skein, and then I think they also both got yarn, if I can remember. I also got the Lina magazine. Was it the Lina? No, I got a pom-pom magazine while I was there, which I'm realizing I forgot over there, but it was a pom-pom magazine. And I'm really excited to work up something from that as well. Oh no, it is a Lina. I don't know. I got a knitting magazine, which is my first pattern magazine before, and I'm really excited to work up a few of the things in it in the future. So when it becomes relevant for knitting plans, I will share that magazine. So yeah, that is my first acquisition. And the other thing that I kind of regret is I bought 3 skeins of this yarn. This is the Purl Soho Plain Air. It is 67% wool and 33% cotton. I believe that the wool is a merino wool, and this is a DK weight yarn. The reason I say I kind of regret this is the reason I bought it was for my Oakley sweater. I'd originally thought I was going to knit size 2, and for size 2 I needed 1,050 yards, and I had almost exactly 1,050 yards of the Purl Soho good wool. But then when I was swatching, I couldn't meet gauge with the recommended needles and with my yarn. I think that the good wool is technically a sport weight, but a lot of people work it as a DK. And given that I was a loose knitter, I figured, this will be a perfect chance for me to use this sport weight yarn, which, because it's got a really high loft, you can work it up as a DK and it'll still look good. So let me use this for this project. I think they'll match really well. And I think that they do match really well. I'm loving the fabric I'm getting. But I was not able to meet gauge. And so I talked to Rachel, the designer, and asked, should I go and get a mohair, or not a mohair, but another fluffy yarn, a surrey, some lace weight to pair with the sport weight so that I could meet gauge? Or is it okay if I work this off gauge? And she was super willing to let me work off gauge. So I'm actually knitting the size 4 now. But that did mean that there was about a 300 yard shortage between what I had and what I needed. So I finished the yoke and then realized I couldn't finish the yoke with a single skein of 100 grams. So I probably needed one more skein of the Purl Soho good wool. So I ordered that, and I hate paying for shipping. And I needed to spend $65 for free shipping, and I only needed one skein of the good wool. So I just took a peek around on the website, and I found this yarn, which is the cotton and the merino, and I thought, wouldn't that be nice for a summer t-shirt, or maybe to make this Friday slipover v-neck, again with the modifications I talked about, in the summer, and have just a solid color version that has some summer fibers so that it is a little bit more breathable. And so I got 3 skeins of this yarn, and tentatively I will make it into the Friday slipover. But when it arrived, I was kind of upset with myself for buying it because I felt like I am on a yarn ban and I shouldn't have done that. But people make mistakes, and I kind of I'll reflect on this in a minute, but I think that to me, it's more important to be making more intentional purchases rather than to just have a full ban. So I don't know, I'm kind of torn. I'm continuing my yarn ban, giving myself grace for this oopsie. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to work up the yarn. I think that it's a really pretty color and it's quite soft. I'm excited to block it. I think it's going to get a little bit softer with wash, and once it's worked up. But yeah, it's pretty, and you'll see this again in the future. So yeah, those are my 2 acquisitions. And then given that for the next few months, I'm hoping to, well, let's say, I'm going to manifest that I'm not buying yarn for the next few months. You will see a few acquisitions as far as sample knit compensation, because I did just complete 2 sample knits and compensation for that. And then I still need to get my yarn from Explorer Knits for sample knitting for them back in November. So you will still see some stuff come through, and then non-yarn acquisitions. I might need a new ball winder soon. Things like that might still come through, but I'm hoping that overall the acquisitions section is a lot shorter because I'm just trying to be more intentional with what I'm buying overall. So I thought it might be interesting, instead of always highlighting what I've bought, to show what is inspiring me or what just I'm loving in the fiber arts community right now. So today I have 2 things. They are both actually, it's a yarn and a pattern, but I'm thinking I can also feature projects from other knitters that have really inspired me, things like that going forward. But today, just the 2 things that really caught me these past few weeks have been, first of all, ZZ Textiles, an amazing dyer. I've never used her yarn, but I follow her and love every single colorway she creates, and I know she has a really great reputation for using interesting bases and just having great colors and being a really kind person. So she is coming out with a collection soon, that is inspired by, it's called Childhood Friends, and it is inspired by stuffed animals or kind of lovies of childhood. So I love that. She did a call for submissions for what your stuffed animal looked like. She's developed the majority of the colorways, but has 2 left to develop and would love to do so from community members. And so she put out a call to submit your stuffed animal. I think it closes on February 9th. So if you are interested, the link will be down below. But I was so excited. I submitted my stuffed animal, who I have with me. This is Tiggy. I don't need to show him too much, but yeah, Tiggy, I've had him since I was at least 2, probably earlier. I actually looked up, he's a Beanie Buddy, which I did not know, and his original name was Blizzard, or his given name by the Beanie Buddies factory, but I've always called him Tiggy because he's a white tiger and I was a child. So I submitted Tiggy, and I know a lot of other people submitted theirs, but I think that this is such a great idea for a collection. I really love, what a good move. Like, the brain usage here is amazing. So I'm really excited to start seeing colorway reveals, and it made me feel something this week. It made me really happy to reflect on my own childhood stuffed animal and the comfort that Tiggy brought to me. And I'm just, excited to see the colors. So the other thing that has been really inspiring me is the Isugar Archives collection. It's coming out soon, and I've seen a few of the patterns that are going to be in it, and they look really cool. One is a design by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but it's a really cool colorwork sweater that I'll have a little picture of. And then the other that I've seen is by AGO Knit, and it's a really cool cabled sweater and actually short set. So it's a set. I think it's called the Gerda set, but I could be wrong. But it's really cool cables, and then it also has this checker design. The original one I saw was knit by the Norwegian knitter on Instagram, and it was in a beautiful kind of baby pink, and it was stunning. And I'm really excited to see the rest of the Archives collection, which is coming out in a few weeks. So yeah, a few things that are inspiring me. This is not meant to market anything to you. I'm not profiting from either of these. Just two things that I thought were really cool. And in the future, I'm also going to try to feature things that are not necessarily products, because these are two things that you could buy. This isn't meant to say go buy these things. It's just meant to say, these are some really cool things by some of our community members. So yeah, hope those were cool to you. Let me know if you think this is an interesting kind of addition to the podcast format. I just figure it's a great way to feature things without necessarily having to buy things, because I can't buy everything that I love, unfortunately. Okay, that is that. And then I did want to quickly reflect on the intentions that I set back in my knitting intentions / goals video. So I made a video about what intentions and goals I have for my knitting in 2024. And I figured this is a good format to kind of do a quick check-in on how things are going on those. So I set 10 goals. This will be quick, I promise. The first goal was around exploring new fibers, and I haven't done anything yet, given that I'm on a yarn ban. I've not bought new yarn, so I can't, well, except for the plein air, which does have cotton. So that is going to happen. I did buy yarn with a new fiber in it. So once I knit that up, I will have done that goal. I want to do more than just knit with cotton, but I forgot that that does have cotton in it. So hey, I might have broken the yarn ban, but I did expand one of my other goals. So it's okay. So yeah, new fibers there. My next goal was to bring my stash down. I'm doing okay on that. The main thing with that is a yarn ban, and it's going well, except for one little oops. And that's okay. We are humans. I'm a human. And yeah, it's going well. I also it has made me reflect a lot. I know I'm only a month into 6 months, but it's made me reflect a lot as well on what yarn I want to start prioritizing when I am buying yarn, and really thinking a lot more about how a lot of what I've done in the past is bought single skeins for myself. So when I'm in a yarn store and I'm visiting for the first time or something like that, I'm really inspired and I just want a souvenir skein, or there's one skein that's really speaking to me, and I end up buying that because the $30 price of one skein of hand-dyed yarn is a lot cheaper than the sweater quantities price. And so I've noticed that I am a lot quicker to buy single skeins than I am to buy sweaters quantity, which makes sense given the cost difference. But then single skeins, you can only really knit so many socks. And so I have to start looking for other patterns to use with them, and then wishing maybe I had some more of the yarn because I could do something really cool if I had more, things like that. So it has kind of made me reflect on the fact that at least once I'm back to more consistently buying yarn, I do want to prioritize sweater quantities or larger garment or accessory quantities over sock or single skein quantities, just so that I think that's going to help me be more intentional with buying, because it has a larger barrier to entry, and then is going to help me enjoy the things I buy more, because I will be knitting garments with them, which are just kind of my preferred thing to knit because I get to wear them more often and show them off more. So something I've been thinking about on that goal, but continuing to hold the yarn ban. I also did destash some yarn. Well, I took it out of my stash and I need to take it to donate. I just have not yet. It's mostly some older acrylic yarns that I'm just excited to have cleared out to make more space in my stash. So doing great there. Patterns, I do want to knit from patterns I already own more, was my intention, and for that I'm on a pattern ban as well. So I'm a month in for my 2-month pattern ban and I have not bought a single pattern, so we're doing good there. I also am realizing more and more, like, oh, I could just modify this pattern I already own to get a similar look to this thing that's inspiring me. I don't necessarily always need to buy the new pattern. I do want to support pattern designers in our knitting space. It's definitely important to buy their patterns, but that doesn't mean that I need to buy it every single time when, I do have the bandwidth to the knowledge and the skills to kind of modify some things to get a look I like after seeing some inspiration. So that's a kind of a nuanced thing. I don't want to say don't support pattern designers. If something inspires you, oh, just rip it off. That's not at all what I'm meaning to say. I just kind of mean, if I own and love this one raglan sweater, and then petite knit specifically, or like another larger designer comes out with a very similar pattern, but it's 2x2 rib instead of 1x1 rib, and it's a little bit of a deeper raglan, or it's a little bit more oversized, or there's a split hem, like smaller features like that. I can easily modify a pattern I already own, or I can make, there's no copyright on a top-down raglan oversized sweater with 2x2 rib details. I have the skills. I've done enough raglans. I have construction techniques. I know how to construct things like that. So I could just design it myself or freestyle it. I wouldn't sell that, but I can freestyle patterns. I don't necessarily always need to buy a pattern, especially for the more simple garments. So that's kind of how my thinking has evolved after a month on a pattern ban. And yeah, it's been great. It's been kind of just nice to take a step back and see how I can use what I already have or come up with my own designs as well. So it's been great there. Deepening my knowledge of yarn was my next goal. So for that, I wanted to try yarn dyeing and then also try spinning. I've not tried either yet, although I did order a Turkish drop spindle the other day and some merino kind of rainbow pastel fiber. So those are both on their way to me soon, and I'm excited to try that out. I was very inspired by Knitting with Ev. She's a new channel that I found, and she just got an e-spinner and was spinning up some yarn and talking about, here's my Turkish spindle spin and then the e-spinner. And I thought that the Turkish spindle looked really interesting. It's kind of like a drop spindle, but yeah, different. It's still a hand spinner. And so I decided to buy an e-spinner, or a Turkish spinner instead of a drop spindle, and just get going just because I was inspired. So we'll see. I'll let you know how that's going when it gets to me and I start learning the spinning. But I'm excited. My next goal was to increase my knitting knowledge, and I have to say that's going okay. I haven't done anything new yet, but I do have a fisherman's rib kind of hood balaclava pattern that I'm planning on working up soon. So I will be doing a fisherman's rib pattern soon, which will be a new stitch for me. And then I have a few designs that I'm planning on doing. So I am expanding as much as I can, but I had, a lot of planned or deadline knits this month, so I didn't have a chance to experience something new yet. I also wanted to make more socks, and I'm doing well on that. I had my first pair of socks for the 12 and 12, so this is my January socks, and I'm already planning my February socks as well as March. I have basically all of them planned, but I'm just planning out when I will start the February socks pretty soon. Wearing my knits more often was another one of my goals, and I've been good with that. I've been a lot more intentional about wearing them as well, to style them more. Last week's video was a styling video where I showed all 3 of my knits and tried to make different outfits with them. So I am taking strides towards that. There's definitely, I could still do a lot more. A lot of people commented on that video and reminded me that jewelry existed. I just kind of forgot that outfits you can add jewelry to kind of bring them up a notch. So I need to continue to increase the way I style my knits, but I am being intentional about it and being intentional about trying to wear them more as well. So I feel good about that. My knit less goal, not doing that well. I've knit a lot in the past month, a lot quicker. My hands actually hurt right now from knitting a little bit. I'm not good at deadlines. I'm good at meeting deadlines, but in my brain, if I have a deadline, even if it's a very reasonable deadline, this test knit, I have like 20 more days to complete it, and the sweaters that I'm knitting, the mini sweaters it's due on the 14th and I need to mail back. So I have like another week that I could be working on it, but I'm already 7 through because I'm not good at deadlines. If I have something that is due soon or in the future, it's due now in my head, and I can't relax or work on anything else until that is done. So having a few deadlines this month has not been great for knitting less. It's also the weather. It was really cold a few weeks ago. It's blizzarding today. So there's been a lot of conditions that have meant that I just have had more knitting time and I've had a larger drive to knit. So continuing to work on this, but yeah, that's how it is for now. Having fewer deadlines is my next goal, and not great so far. My goal was to have only one deadline knit a month, and I did that in January. In February, I already have 2 deadlines. No, 3. I have 3 deadlines already, so hoping to slow that down as we go on. And then my final goal was to have more community and less content when it comes to the content the videos and Instagram posts that I am making, to engage an audience more, and then also to comment on more people's things. And I've done the commenting. I could do better on Instagram, but on YouTube, I've really been intentional about only watching knitting videos when I am ready to sit down and then make a comment. And I've tried to comment on pretty much every knitting video I've watched in the past month. So feel good about that. So yeah, those are my intentions and how we're doing on them. And then finally, I wanted to give 2 quick recommendations. I'm not a recommendation person that much, and I mostly just kind of mindlessly consume stuff, but I have read/listened to 2 books this month that I thought were good. The first book I read, it is called Divine Rivals. Don't know the author's name. I never know authors' names, but it was part of a book club that I'm in, and it was really good. It was one of the first books in a while that I've actually stayed up to finish. So I stayed up till 1 a.m. one night when I start work at 6 in the morning to finish it, and so that was great. It's a really interesting book. I'll link it down below if you're interested, but it's basically these 2 people who start as rivals at a newspaper who are competing for the same job, and then there's a war going on, and there's gods, and they end up both becoming war correspondents on this war, and they fall in love, and it's kind of cheesy, but you don't know what's going to happen, so it's great. The other thing is the audiobook I listened to is Argyle, which just came out as a movie, but I listened to the book, and it was really good. It's a spy novel. I know the author for this one, Ellie Conway, because it's very prominent on the front cover. So Argyle by Ellie Conway was really good. It's a spy book. If you like spy stories, it's good. And I'm excited to now watch the movie after having listened to it. So, okay. That is all. I think this has gone on for quite a while. So thank you so much for watching. And I will see you all very soon. And I'm wishing you a good week ahead. I hope you're staying warm and dry and getting a lot of knitting done. Okay, have a good one. Bye.